Hi, good morning, everyone. Long time no see. I'm Dr. Amber Thornton, clinical psychologist and author of A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation. And I'm excited to pop on this morning before I start my work day because I wanted to talk to you about what happens when parents are dysregulated. So hello, good morning to everyone joining. I have been telling myself that I am going to start coming on here a little bit more often to talk about the things that I love, but also the things that I think are so important. For those of you who already know me, you know parenting is such a big passion for me. One, because I personally am a mother. I have two kids, a 3 and a 5-year old, but also as a psychologist, teaching and guiding parents are just one of the highlights of what I do. And let me tell you a few reasons. I actually want to give you a little backstory to kind of understand why I like talking about parenting so much. When I was in graduate school, so I'm a psychologist, that means I went to school for a very long time. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. That was a 5-year program, and throughout my program, I always knew I wanted to work with children. And so most of my graduate studies in psychology was teaching me to be able to work with children, to help treat children in their mental health concerns and disorders, to help families understand lots of training and experiences with family therapy and child-based therapies, developmental theories. I know a lot about mental health and children and adolescents and teenagers. I know a lot. And the idea for me was that if we can help children, they will become better adults, right? They will become more well-adjusted adults, better functioning adults, and that will continue on for generations, right? I wasn't completely wrong, but I think somewhere along my journey of becoming a psychologist, getting in the field a little bit, but then also becoming a parent, I realized, oh wow, I wasn't wrong, but I think I missed a very important piece. And the piece that I missed was that children function so much better when they are cared for by parents and caregivers who are also functioning well. That realization somewhere along the way in my journey shifted my focus tremendously. I'm glad that I went the course that I went because it's really hard to go from working to adults to kids. But I got the benefit of first starting working with kids. And now I'm shifting to focus on adults and specifically parents because I know that when you are a better parent, your child will be better adjusted. And I feel so confident in that. I know that if I actually just work with you as a parent, I know that that will benefit your child tenfold. And I don't even have to see your child. Like that right there completely shifted my perspective. And that is why I'm so passionate about work with parents because more children need parents who are grounded, who are healed, who have addressed their own traumas, who are emotionally regulated, and also parents who feel confident in themselves, but then also as a parent. That has been my journey for the last few years, being in the field as a child-based psychologist, working with children, and just feeling like something's still missing. Because no matter how hard I work with this child in my office or in my therapy space, when they go back home, if their parent or caregiver is struggling with their mental health, with their confidence, with their own intergenerational traumas, it's not working. So that is why parenting for me is such a passion and why you're going to see me here talking about parenting because I know that many of you who watch me, you are parents and you want the best for your children. I feel that way about most parents, even when parents have a lot of work to do, right? Most parents want the best for their kids, and sometimes there are things that get in the way that don't allow us to fully meet that expectation. show up how we want for our kids. So that is why parenting is such a passion for me. And also because personally, I'm doing this work for myself too. I think the big shift happened for me also when I became a parent. I think there are many psychologists who are not parents who do amazing work with children and families. I am not one that believes you have to be a parent to then be effective with parents and children. Absolutely not. Because there's so much that we learn in our training to become psychologists to help treat dysfunctions and mental health challenges within a family system. You don't have to be a parent for that. But what I will say is that me becoming a parent shifted my perspective to see it a little bit differently. I don't think that will happen for every psychologist who becomes a parent, but that was my personal experience. Me becoming a parent shifted my perspective, and it made me want to focus on parents, because I know when parents are better, children are better. So with that being said, I'm also the author of this book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation. And today I actually just want to talk about what happens when a parent is emotionally dysregulated. And so first, I think it's important for us to define, what does it mean when I say emotional dysregulation? So I'm actually going to break it down a little bit, right? So what does it mean to be regulated? To be regulated means to be balanced, to be at your baseline, to be to feel composed, right? So right now I feel pretty regulated. My mood is pretty stable. I'm feeling like I'm able to function and take on the demands of this moment. I'm regulated. To be dysregulated is the opposite of that. So you don't feel like you're composed. You don't feel like you're at your baseline. You don't feel like there's a balance or an equilibrium, right? So there's something maybe in your environment or a circumstance or a situation that moved you out of your baseline and you are no longer regulated. Now you are dysregulated, okay? That can happen to anybody and anything. Anybody and anything, okay? Kids, adolescents, adults, parents. Everyone has the potential to be in a regulated state and then not be in a regulated state. So they become dysregulated. So then when we add on the word emotional, what that means is that your emotional state, your mood is no longer at baseline. It's no longer balanced. Your mood or your emotions no longer feel composed. They don't feel contained. They might feel up. They might feel down. They might feel very fluid. They might feel out of control, right? That is emotional dysregulation. And what I believe is that when people become emotionally dysregulated, there's something in their environment, something in the situation, something in the circumstance that led to their emotions no longer being contained and composed, okay? Now, if you are a parent, I'm sure you can think of all the 1,755 million things that have the potential to throw you out of your emotional regulated state, right? Like, let's just be honest. And so one thing about me, I'm always going to be real with you. We're not going to pretend here. There are 1,000 million bajillion things as a parent that can come up that can completely throw you out of your emotional regulated state. So I say that because I want everyone to know, if you find yourself as a parent emotionally dysregulated, one, you're not the only one. Two, it's probably not your fault. And three, I want you to know that the goal is not to always be regulated per se. That's just not realistic. But rather, I want you all to be more aware of the things that are happening around you and how they may impact you. And that is a lot of the work that I do with parents. It's like, we're not trying to create this perfect life for you where you're always regulated, you're always composed, you're always feeling balanced. That's not possible. But rather, resources like this book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation, will help you to become more aware of the things that impact you in your day-to-day as a parent, parenting triggers that may come up for you, things that you literally cannot change, but rather you can become more clear on how it impacts you, and then you get to change your response to it, right? Like, My goal is to equip parents with the tools they need to feel more confident in tackling their day-to-day as a parent. But then the beauty in that is when you feel more confident, when you have the tools to tackle your day-to-day as a parent, you become a better parent and you feel more joy, feel more connection with your kid, and then you also start to feel how it's changing for your kid. So that is what I mean when I say emotional dysregulation, okay? And also, if you all want to come back to this, I will save this live, and also all of this is in this book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation, that I wrote this summer so that you can learn more. So I want to now give you some signs for how do I know if I'm emotionally dysregulated. Also, if y'all have questions, feel free. I will happily will answer questions today about parenting, emotional dysregulation, how this impacts you or your kids. We can talk about all that today. But I want to give you some signs and symptoms to look out for emotional dysregulation, because some of you might be wondering, okay, well, how do I know? How do I know if I'm emotionally dysregulated? For some people, it would be very obvious. But for others, it's not so clear, right? For many, many people, and especially parents, I think this happens, you might be emotionally dysregulated and you don't even know it. And it's because, as a parent, our days are often so fast, so high-paced. Or many times as parents, we are kind of just in autopilot. We have the same day over and over again. It might switch up on the weekends, and then we back to it the same day. So it might be that your typical normal state is dysregulated, and you're just thinking it's normal when it's not. So let's look at some things that I want you all to be aware of that might indicate, hey, maybe I am dysregulated. Okay. So some signs of emotional dysregulation. This is what you need to be looking out for. Are you noticing that you are experiencing overly intense emotions? Okay. Overly intense emotions. And this could be happening for a variety of reasons. Maybe something happened at work, and so you're kind of up and down. Maybe you're experiencing some grief and loss, and so you're kind of up and down. Maybe you're going through a really challenging parenting season. That parenting season can be very dysregulating. So overly intense emotions. I also think about this as, there might be a situation or a circumstance that you're in that would warrant an emotional response, for sure. Emotions are normal. If you're not feeling any emotions, that's a different type of problem, but still a problem. Emotions are good, but sometimes the intensity of the emotion might be bigger than the situation warrants, right? So that's something to look out for. For instance, maybe I might feel disappointment about something that didn't go my way. If the situation is like this, ideally the disappointment will be like this. But if the situation is like this and your disappointment is like this, we need to be thinking about that. That might be an indication that, hey, maybe I am emotionally dysregulated because the intensity of my emotions are very, very big in comparison to the situation or the impact that it has on you. Explosive anger. Like, y'all, can we be real about anger and rage, especially for mothers? So there's this term, mom rage. I'm sure many of y'all have heard it. And if you haven't heard it, you may have experienced this thing where you become a parent or a mother, and then all of a sudden you become this person that experiences a lot more anger, a lot more rage. And maybe these feelings are more external and more apparent. And they also feel different than your typical self. You might say to yourself, this is not who I am. I don't recognize myself. I've never been this way before. Or people may say to you, that's new. Are you okay? Or they might be surprised that you are experiencing or expressing so much anger and rage. I think that happens for mothers specifically for a variety of reasons, because when mothers become mothers, there actually was this article of all the big changes that occur in our brains in postpartum that absolutely impact our emotional responses and expression. But then also, I would argue that just socially and culturally, the demand and the intensity of the demand put on us is very dysregulating. And so, in response, we might see a lot of explosive anger. Impulsive behaviors are also another indication. So, that might be you having trouble controlling your desires, your needs, your wants. There's this impulse to do something or to grab something or to eat something, to say something. You're having trouble containing and controlling certain needs or desires of yours. So impulse control, if you're noticing that, is just a little bit more difficult to maintain or to regulate. Frequently overwhelmed. How many of us, again, I feel like I'm talking mostly to moms today, but as parents or as mothers, how many of us just constantly feel overwhelmed and we have just convinced ourselves that this is just life now? This is just life. I'm overwhelmed. Emotional dysregulation. Yes, parenting is overwhelming. Yes, there are a lot of stressors, but if you are noticing that your typical day-to-day is this heightened state of overwhelm, that's likely an indication of emotional dysregulation. Also, excessive tearfulness, you all. For some people, again, not everybody, and you don't have to have all of these signs and symptoms, but for some people, this emotional dysregulation is expressed in this excessive tearfulness. Maybe just feeling tearful about the thought of something or a conversation about something. It may feel like there's always this emotionality bubbling under the surface, and so it can quickly rise to the top. Okay, and that can be with sadness, that can be with anger, that can be with a lot of emotions, but just feeling like you're not able to sit with an emotion without it kind of boiling over. Emotional dysregulation. So some of these other ones might surprise you. Trouble making decisions. Okay. If you are a parent or a mother, you're having trouble making decisions, you feel really overwhelmed by your decisions or your choices you're making, that could also be an indication of emotional dysregulation. And what I would say is that there's probably this level of worry or anxiety that's keeping you paralyzed and stuck and unable to move forward with a decision. Okay. So that also can be an indication. Rapidly shifting moods, right? So for some people, when they're emotionally dysregulated, it might be one specific emotion that just feels really intense or bubbling over. But for other people, it might be that they are shifting in and out of moods very quickly. Disclaimer, that does not mean that you have bipolar disorder, okay? We're not diagnosing anything here, okay? Because also rapidly shifting moods is not symptomatic of true bipolar disorder. Okay. We'll talk about that later. We'll do a whole discussion on like mental health clinical diagnoses later. But rapidly shifting moods could really just mean that you are emotionally dysregulated. Okay. It might be that you are experiencing several emotional states for a variety of reasons and having trouble containing them all. Maybe you are overwhelmed by all of the emotions that you feel. And that happens. As humans, you are capable and it is possible for you to experience more than one emotional state. Okay? I can feel sadness and joy at the same time. I can feel gratitude and envy at the same time. I can feel anger and, something else at the same time. We are complex human beings. Our emotional experience is complex, so we can feel multiple things at once. Withdrawal and isolation. Let's talk about that. For some people, when they are emotionally dysregulated, they will isolate and withdraw for a few reasons. For some, they say, I feel embarrassed or ashamed by my emotionality, and so I want to step away. For other people, when they are feeling an excessive emotional state or a lot of emotions, they go more internal, and so they start to just internalize a lot of what they're feeling, right? And so they're doing a lot of internalizing of their feelings, and they're maybe like self-reflecting a lot, probably ruminating a lot about certain beliefs or thinking that are associated with the feelings, and so that takes them in, and so they withdraw. Okay. So unfortunately for some people, when they are withdrawing, they don't notice it, and instead it's the people around them that are noticing it. So if you have mom friends or some of the friends in your parent circle, and you're noticing that someone's just kind of like going inward, withdrawing from the group, isolating themselves, it might be that they are just feeling very emotionally dysregulated, maybe very overwhelmed by their emotional states. Someone asked, will there be a playback? Yep, I'm gonna save it later today. I'll have it saved here. Inability to manage your behaviors. Okay, so we're talking about emotions, but often we need to be paying attention to our behaviors, because some people don't have the awareness to know emotionally what's going on for them. And that's also why this book is so important, because in the framework, and I'll talk a little bit about the framework before I go, part of this framework of becoming more emotionally regulated as a parent is building your self-awareness around your emotional experiences. And that's hard, because remember, we talked about, as a parent, it's often day to day, like autopilot. You're doing the same thing every day, or there's so many things, feels so high paced. How can you stop to think about how you feel? But I want to challenge and urge you all, more emotional regulation for you as a parent means self-awareness is required. And so I want to be able to teach and guide and support you all in that process. I want you to become more self-aware so that you know what's impacting you. But for those of you who in the beginning, you're having a hard time understanding what you feel, look at your behaviors, okay? So actually, I will give one personal example for me. I've talked about emotional eating as something that in the past I've noticed is something that I do, always feeling like I need a snack or I need something sweet. And I realized I'm not hungry. I'm bored, or I'm sad, or I'm lonely, or I'm disappointed. Me learning how to connect the emotions to the behavior of me feeling like I constantly needed to snack was very insightful, because I knew that there was this behavior happening that I was doing that I felt like I couldn't control. But when I connected the feelings, it was like, oh, so let me address these feelings, and then I will likely see this behavior go away. That's also how we think about children. So what we always say as a child-based psychologist or someone who works with kids and families, when your child is exhibiting a behavior, and this behavior could be really irritating, frustrating, disruptive, concerning, let's think about this behavior as a means of communication, and or what are they feeling? What might they be trying to communicate with us? Okay. So if we're only looking at, okay, this child is being disruptive, disrespectful, whatever, we're going to miss so much. We're going to miss so much, because instead we need to be thinking about what are they trying to communicate and what might they be feeling. So with that, I want you to do that with you as well. If there's something you're doing, like having trouble waking up, emotional eating, maybe drinking too much. I'm not talking about addiction, but I'm just, sometimes it's like, oh, I was going to have one drink, but I had 3 instead. Or other behaviors, other things, other habits that you know that you're wanting to break, and it's like you're just having trouble. I want you to pay attention to emotionally what's going on underneath that, because there's likely something else. So again, I'm saying that to say, those of you who are having trouble managing certain behaviors or habits that might not be healthy for you, there's likely some sort of emotion that's underneath it. And if we address that emotion, we can start to control that behavior or shift that behavior a bit. But again, it all goes back to, there's probably some emotional dysregulation that is causing that to happen. 2 more, guys. Avoidance of difficult emotions or emotional conversations. So those of you who are like, I ain't trying to talk about that. I'm not trying to go there. I don't want to get emotional today. I'm not. That avoidance, that constant avoidance of like, no, I don't want to. You avoiding your emotional experiences is likely a sign of emotional dysregulation, and also likely you trying to control and manipulate all of the emotion that is already there. Right? So again, I want you all to feel more comfortable with your emotional experience, especially as a parent. We cannot become more emotionally regulated if we are avoiding our emotional experiences. That It doesn't work. It doesn't work. We gotta talk about our emotions. We gotta get comfortable with our emotional experiences to become more emotionally regulated. And then lastly, this one might surprise you, difficulty setting boundaries. So for those of you who are having trouble setting boundaries at work, setting boundaries with your partner, setting boundaries with your kids, setting boundaries with your in-laws, setting boundaries with your anybody, let's think about if this might be a sign of emotional dysregulation for you, okay? Because oftentimes when we are emotionally dysregulated, it often leaks into our relational experiences as well. And so we might notice that we're having a lot of relational challenges, and sometimes at the core of emotional or relational conflict or relational challenges is this lack of boundaries. Okay? So those are the things I want you to be thinking about. Are you experiencing any of those things that might be coming up for you? And if so, it could be that you are emotionally dysregulated. Okay. And what I want you to know is that with emotional dysregulation, the goal is not to always be regulated, to always be composed. No, but rather the goal is to become more self-aware around what's going on for you, what's impacting you, and then also what tools and strategies you can pull for to help support you in that moment. Okay. This is what I want you to be thinking about. I want you to think about emotional regulation throughout your day-to-day. This is kind of like homework, okay? This is what I would do if you were my therapy client. I want you to go throughout your day-to-day for the rest of this day, the rest of this week, and really start to sit with yourself and think, okay, what do I feel in this moment? Am I feeling balanced? Am I feeling composure? Are there emotions boiling under the surface that I'm having trouble managing? Are you feeling regulated emotionally? I want you to go back to some of those signs and symptoms and be very honest with yourself about, am I experiencing any of those in excess? Because some of them you will. We're human. We're not perfect, so things will happen. But are you experiencing any of these things constantly, every single day, in your day-to-day, right? If that's the case, that's a problem. And if you are, I want you to do a few things. One, I want you to come back and watch these lives. My goal is to pop on once a week and to talk about this topic because I want you to learn more about emotional regulation and to know what can work for you and what may not work for you. But I also really want you to consider ordering A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation. I think this can be a very good tool for you to learn how to begin to feel more emotionally regulated and to feel more balanced and controlled. For you, but then also for your kids. Because one of the biggest questions I started to get after writing this book is, okay, well, how do I help my child become more emotionally regulated? And what I will say to you is that will be very challenging if you yourself haven't mastered this skill. If you don't yet feel confident in your ability to feel emotionally regulated as a parent, it's very hard to teach this to your kids. But the easiest way to make sure that these skills are passed down generationally is for you to master and internalize them yourself, and then to model them for your kids, who then will model them for their kids, and who then will model them for their kids, right? So I'm excited to talk to you about this more. I hope to see you all in the next live, but also order your copy of A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation. In the new year, in 2025, I have some exciting things coming up where I am working on a therapeutic skills and support group for parents who want to become emotionally regulated or more emotionally regulated. I'm very excited about it. I'm thinking about the planning and when that will be ready. So if you're interested in something like that, please stick around because I will absolutely let you know when that's ready. It'll likely be end of January, maybe early February when we will get started. But the goal is for parents who want to become more emotionally regulated, parents who notice that maybe their own intergenerational traumas or their own challenges have really interfered with their ability to parent in the way they really want. It's also for parents who want to be able to internalize these skills of regulation to pass down to their kids. Any parent who wants to feel more grounded and feel more regulated emotionally, this group will be for you. So again, therapeutic skills and support group for parents who want more emotional regulation, coming soon, 2025. I actually would encourage you to join my email list if you're interested in that as well. So there's a variety of ways to do that. Go to my website at dramberthornton.com and just join the email list, and you'll get more information when that's coming. Okay, y'all, I gotta go. I will save this live. It'll be up later today, but I so enjoyed this time with you all. I hope y'all have a great day, and we'll talk soon.